When my son-in-law screamed at me to get out of his house, he made one fatal mistake. He forgot that sometimes the woman you underestimate is the one holding all the cards. 3 years ago, my world changed overnight. My husband of 42 years passed suddenly, and I found myself alone in a house that felt too big, too quiet, too full of memories. My daughter Sarah called me every day, worried sick about me rattling around in that empty place. "Mom, come, live with us," she pleaded. "Emma's almost in college. We have the space, and honestly, I'd love having you here." Her husband Derek seemed enthusiastic too. "Of course, Mom," he'd say, using that term with what I thought was genuine affection. Your family. But there was a problem. They'd been house hunting for months, trying to find something big enough for all of us, but kept getting outbid. The market was brutal, and their savings account was stretched thin. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I called them over one evening and laid it out simply. "I'll give you the down payment, all of it, but I want a legal agreement, a lien on the property, just in case." Derek laughed, waving his hand dismissively. "Mom, that's not necessary. We're family." But I insisted. My late husband had been a lawyer, and he'd taught me well. Always protect yourself, even with family, especially with family. So we signed the papers. I transferred $80,000 from my husband's life insurance, their entire down payment, and in exchange I received a legal lien on the property. If they ever tried to sell or refinance without paying me back, or if they violated our living arrangement, I had the right to claim ownership. Derek signed without even reading the fine print. For the first year, everything was perfect. I helped, with Emma, cooked family dinners, tended the garden. Derek would come home from work and actually seemed happy to see me. But slowly things began to change. It started with little comments. "Mom, maybe you could eat dinner a bit earlier. We like to eat alone sometimes." Then, "Could you maybe not use the living room when we have friends over?" I bit my tongue. This was their house, after all. Or so I thought Derek believed. By year 2, the comments became complaints. I was too loud in the morning. I watched my shows too loudly. I left dishes in the sink. Every little thing I did seemed to irritate him more and more. Sarah tried to mediate, poor thing, caught between her husband and her mother. "Mom, maybe if you just tried to be a little quieter in the mornings." I could see the strain in her eyes, the way she'd flinch when Derek would sigh dramatically every time I entered a room. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in March. I'd made pot roast. Derek's favorite, or at least it used to be. I'd spent all afternoon preparing it, hoping to bridge whatever gap had grown between us. When he came home from work, his face was already dark, with some frustration from his day. "What's that smell?" he asked, not in the way you ask about something delicious, but like he'd smelled something rotten. "Pot roast," I said cheerfully, trying to ignore the tone. "The way you used to like it." He slammed his briefcase down. "Used to like it. Past tense. I don't want to come home to the smell of old lady cooking anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow. Sarah gasped from the doorway. "Derek!" But he wasn't done. 3 years of resentment came pouring out. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of tiptoeing around my own house. I'm sick of her stuff everywhere. Her TV shows. Her medicines cluttering up our bathroom. I'm sick of feeling like a guest in my own home. "Derek, please." Sarah tried to intervene, but he held up his hand. "No. I've had enough. I work 60 hours, a week to pay for this house, And I can't even relax in it because she's always there. I stood frozen by the stove, the pot roast growing cold, my heart breaking with each word. Then he turned to me directly, his face twisted with anger I'd never seen before. "Pack your bags, Mom. I want you out. This is my house, paid for by my mortgage, and I want you gone by the end of the week." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah was crying. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "Derek, you can't just—" Sarah started. "Yes, I can. It's my name on the deed, my credit on the line. I've been supporting her for 3 years, and I'm done." I looked at my daughter's face, red and streaked with tears, torn between the two people she loved most, and I made a decision. "All right," I said quietly. "I'll go." Derek looked surprised, like he'd expected more of a fight. "Good," he said, but his voice was already less certain. "That's good." I walked to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in 3 years, I smiled. That night, while Derek celebrated his victory with a beer in front of the TV, I made some phone calls. First, I called my bank. "I need access to my safety deposit box tomorrow morning." Then I called the lawyer who'd helped me draft the original lien agreement, a sharp young woman named Patricia, who'd taken over my husband's practice. "Patricia, it's Margaret. Remember that lien agreement we drafted 3 years ago? I need to activate it." There was a pause. "What happened, Margaret?" "I'm being evicted from the home I helped purchase. The agreement stated clearly that I had the right to live there as long as I wished, and that any attempt to remove me would constitute a breach of contract." "Oh my," Patricia said softly. "He has no idea, does he?" "None whatsoever." The next morning, while Derek was at work and Sarah was at her job, I went to the bank. In my safety deposit box, next to my husband's wedding ring and my grandmother's jewelry, was a manila folder. Inside was the original lien agreement, signed and notarized. The language was clear. In exchange for the down payment, I was granted the right to reside in the property for the duration of my life, and any attempt to force my removal would result in immediate transfer of ownership to me. Derek had signed it without reading it. I'd counted on his arrogance, and I'd been right. I took the documents to Patricia's office. "I want to proceed immediately," I told her. "File whatever paperwork is necessary." Patricia smiled, the kind of smile lawyers get when they know they're about to win big. "Margaret, by the time I'm done, you won't just be staying in that house. You'll own it." I came home that afternoon to find Derek in an unusually good mood. He'd already started moving my things, boxing up my photos and personal items with an efficiency that broke my heart. I found a nice assisted living place, about 20 minutes from here, he said without looking at me. "They have an opening next month. Assisted living." After everything I'd done for this family, he saw me as an old woman to be warehoused. "That's thoughtful of you," I said mildly. Sarah came home to find boxes everywhere and immediately started crying again. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I tried talking to him, but—" "It's all right, sweetheart," I told her, patting her hand. "Everything happens for a reason." Derek snorted. "Finally, some acceptance. I was worried you'd make this difficult." I spent that evening calmly packing my clothes, letting Derek think he'd won. He even hummed while he cooked dinner. Probably the happiest I'd seen him in months. 2 days later, while I was sitting quietly in the garden, a car pulled up. A man in a suit got out and knocked on the door. I heard Derek answer. "Can I help you?" "Derek Harrison. I'm here to serve you with legal documents." I didn't move from my garden chair, but I could hear everything through the open window, Legal documents? What kind of legal documents? Sir, you're being notified that this property is subject to an existing lien, and due to breach of the residency agreement, ownership is being transferred to Margaret Morrison, effective immediately. The silence stretched so long I thought maybe Derek had fainted. I'm sorry, what? What lien? This is my house. Sir, according to these documents, Mrs. Morrison provided the down payment for this property in exchange for a lien agreement that granted her lifetime residency rights. Your attempt to evict her constitutes a breach of contract, triggering the ownership transfer clause. That's impossible. The down payment was a gift. Sir, I have the notarized documents here. Would you like to review them? I finally stood up and walked inside. Derek was standing in the doorway, holding papers with shaking hands, his face white as a sheet. When he saw me, his expression went through about 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally something that looked like panic. You, he said, his voice barely a whisper. You did this. I did nothing, I said calmly. You did this. I simply protected myself, exactly like I told you I was going to do 3 years ago. But the down payment was a gift. Your family sat down in my favorite chair, my chair now, in my house now, and looked at him steadily. Derek, I gave you $80,000 and asked for one thing in return, a simple legal agreement that would let me live here peacefully for the rest of my life. You signed that agreement. I didn't read it. That's not my problem. Sarah had come home in the middle of this and was standing in the doorway, looking back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. Mom, she said slowly. What's happening? Derek turned to her, still clutching the papers. Your mother. She owns our house now. Sarah blinked. What? I sighed. Sweetie, when I gave you the down payment, I asked for a lien on the property. Your husband signed an agreement that said if anyone tried to force me to leave, ownership would transfer to me. Yesterday, he told me to pack my bags and get out of his house. So now it's her house. Derek finished, his voice hollow. The silence in that room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Derek slowly sat down on the couch, my couch now, and put his head in his hands. This can't be happening, he muttered. This can't be legal. It's completely legal, I said. I had it drafted by a lawyer, reviewed by another lawyer, and notarized by the bank. You signed it willingly. But I didn't understand what I was signing, Derek, I said, my voice growing firmer. You're a grown man with a college degree and a professional job. You signed a legal document without reading it because you were so eager to get your hands on my money that you couldn't be bothered. With the details, that's not my fault. Sarah was still standing there, looking stunned. Mom, do you really own our house now? Legally, yes. Derek's head snapped up. So what? You're going to kick us out? Make us homeless? I looked at this man who, just days ago, had been willing to send me to an assisted living facility like I was a piece of furniture he no longer wanted. I'm going to do exactly what you were going to do to me, I said. I'm going to give you time to find somewhere else to live. But Sarah, Emma's in high school here. You should have thought about that before you decided I was too much of a burden to tolerate. Derek stood up suddenly, pacing. Okay. What do you want? Money? I can pay you back? With what money, Derek? You just told me how hard it is to afford this place. I'll get a loan. I'll refinance. I shook my head. You can't refinance a house you don't own." He stopped pacing and stared at me. "So that's it? You're just going to destroy our family?" "I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply reclaiming what was always mine." Sarah finally spoke up, her voice small. "Mom, what about us? Where are we supposed to go?" This was the hardest part. I looked at my daughter, my beautiful, kind daughter, who'd been caught in the middle of this whole mess, and my heart broke for her. "Sweetie, you are always welcome in my home, you and Emma both. But Derek..." I looked at my son-in-law, who was glaring at me with pure hatred now. Derek needs to decide if he can live respectfully with the woman who owns the house he lives in. "You're enjoying this," he said bitterly. "I'm not enjoying any of this, Derek. I wanted nothing more than to live quietly with my family for whatever years I have left. You're the one who decided that was too much to ask." He was quiet for a long moment, and I could see him thinking, calculating, trying to find some way out of this. Finally, he looked at me with something that might have been respect. "What are your terms?" he asked. We sat around the kitchen table that night, the three of us, and worked out a new arrangement. Derek could stay, but there would be rules. Real rules, written down and signed. He would treat me with respect. He would contribute to household expenses, and he would never again threaten my place in this family. "And if I don't agree?" he asked. "Then you can find somewhere else to live," I said simply. "But Sarah and Emma are welcome here as long as they want to stay." He looked at his wife, who was still processing everything that had happened. "Sarah?" he asked. She was quiet for a long time before she spoke. "Derek, you were wrong," she said finally. "My mother gave us our dream house, and you tried to throw her away like garbage. I don't know if I can forgive that. But if I agree to this arrangement, you'll stay?" She looked at me, then back at him. "I'll stay. But things have to be different. Really different," Rick nodded slowly. He didn't have much choice. We drew up a new agreement. This time, Derek read every word twice before signing. He would pay rent to live in my house. He would treat me as an equal member of the household. And if he ever again tried to force me out, he'd be the one leaving. Permanently. It's been 6 months now since what I've come to think of as the reckoning. Derek is a different man. He still has his moments, but he holds his tongue now. He knows who holds the power in this house. More importantly, he's learned something about respect, about gratitude, about not underestimating the quiet strength of a woman who's survived 73 years on this earth. Sarah and I are closer than we've ever been. Emma thinks the whole thing is hilarious. Grandma totally owned Dad, she told her friends. And me, I sleep peacefully in my own house, in my own bed, knowing that no one can ever make me feel small or unwanted again. Sometimes the people who underestimate you are the ones who teach you your own power. Derek thought he was dealing with a helpless, old woman. Instead, he found out he'd been living with a lioness who was just waiting for the right moment to show her claws. The house is quiet now, but it's a different kind of quiet. It's peaceful, it's safe, it's home, and it's mine. If you're living with family, protect yourself. If you're dealing with someone who thinks they hold all the cards, remember, sometimes the most powerful person in the room is the one everyone underestimates. And if someone tries to throw you away like you don't matter, well, make sure you've read the fine print first.